Hello and welcome to today's very special episode of Veeam Tech Bites. I'm Rick Vanover, the Rickatron. I am your host today, and we have something very unique that really dives into what I personally call the Veeam of Today. And I'm joined by a very special guest today, Cassandra Maldini. How are you today?
Thank you so much for having me, Rick. It's so exciting to be here.
So first of all, we're talking about a serious topic. We're talking about privacy, consent, and some of the governance that goes with that. And a lot of folks are super curious when Veeam acquired Security AI. We'll talk about that, Cassandra. But tell us a little bit about your role in your area of expertise and really that unique history that makes you the right person to talk about this today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as leading privacy governance and AI strategy for Veeam and Security AI, I basically spent a lot of my days helping our customers and organizations solve what I think is one of today's biggest challenges in this space, which is how to govern data and AI at enterprise scale without really slowing down innovation. So I think that the typical person that's listening right now has been around Veeam for a long time. They know that, they know us as the leader of backup and recovery and resilience. And that's a huge part of who we are, right? But with the acquisition, we've sort of expanded that vision, and the philosophy significantly, right? And I think that we're really talking about this end-to-end data command platform, which I think that we are going to be able to show everybody, right? It's exciting that we can now do end-to-end governance in one platform.
Indeed, and that is the perfect segue to really kind of some of the product announcements we had at the Veeam on London event that really hits home about the Veeam of today. And I want to start with this because a lot of folks have started seeing this. It's on our website. Some of the Veeam on content had really focused on this. And what I really want to highlight is, a lot of people, like you said, Cassandra, they come to know us for resilience. But what
Right.
we're going to talk about here today are these extra dimensions around compliance and privacy. And there's an absolute need to put all of that together. And we've
That's right.
directionally said the data AI command platform will be the place for it. And I'm in, I love it. And true fact, didn't security AI start around the privacy practice?
That's right. And I mean, the reason why you asked me the question, why am I the right person to talk about this, right? I've been in data compliance and specifically been a privacy and cybersecurity lawyer for the last 20 years, right? So I've seen this evolution, with HIPAA and then cloud and now AI, right? And so I've seen all of these dimensions and I've seen how privacy has really had to change and attempt to keep up. And we all know that the law and regulatory frameworks can really never keep up with the speed of innovation. But if we stay in our traditional manual assessments, manual privacy notices, manual data mapping, we are never going to be able to keep up and be an enabler for our businesses. And I really want privacy teams, compliance teams, governance teams, whether it's privacy compliance, data governance or security, to really be able to keep pace with innovation. And I think that the only way to do that right now is with this word that I've been saying for the last 5 years, which is convergence. And that is what our, sort of our theme is right now, is let's get all these data risk teams to really converge in one platform, have this single pane of glass and visibility across your entire data ecosystem. And then whatever you want to do with it tactically, I feel as though privacy and governance and compliance and security, those are sort of like tactics, what you want to do to data to prevent risk.
That's what it's all about. It's about reducing that risk. And I like to refer to the security, governance, compliance, and privacy parts as really the finer parts of IT. And that's a perfect segue to what we want to call the next chapter of Veeam data resilience. And beyond that, really the risk reduction. And here's the thing, Cassandra. I've been at Veeam 16 years. A lot of folks on the stream have seen me and stuff, which I forgot to say. I'm tuning in from Central Ohio. We got a producer in Texas. Cassandra's joining us from California. Let us know where you're watching from. But so many times, Cassandra, like my conversations around data were limited to things like terabytes or storage performance tiers. But now we're entertaining conversations around data, around its context, its governance, its compliance footprint, and really what happens with some of these applications that are going on in the market. And I think this is the right time to really activate that convergence. And it's better than
Absolutely.
ever to do it now.
Absolutely. And sort of what the platform allows us to do now that we are integrated, right? Is it allows our customers to answer the questions about their data: who, what, where, when, why, how, right? It's sort of like investigative journalism for data, right? Who has access to it? What are they allowed to do with it? When are they allowed to? How long are we allowed to keep it? And so it gives you this visibility into your data ecosystem, and then allows you to apply a lot of data hygiene so that you're confident about what data is going into, for example, what models or what agents are allowed to access what data. And I think that this is one of the most important fundamental sort of prerequisites in my table stakes, to be honest, for AI readiness. I really cannot conceive of a large enterprise switching on enterprise-wide AI without having confidence in their data. And the Veeam data command platform really allows you to do that.
Yeah, and I think it's also super important to know that, it's hard to pick a favorite. Like, what's your favorite child? Well, I don't know, right? And none of it matters if it can't be made resilient. And then likewise, none of it matters if it's not secure or if you've got compliance problems, right? So this
That's
is
right.
that classic chicken and egg element, but privacy is one that probably doesn't get enough love and attention, and we're solving that here on today's Tech Bites. But Cassandra, walk us through why privacy ops matter today for organizations, and this is kind of the problem. And of course, we're going to talk about the solution.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, everybody sort of is all about, the FOMO of AI and generative AI and agentic AI, and there are a ton of privacy issues surrounding AI, right? But from just a regulatory problem, right? I mean, and a legal issue, privacy is still a bleeding neck issue, with all organizations across the globe, particularly where they are highly regulated or they deal with a lot of customer data. They just plain and simple, they have regulatory obligations for that data to understand: where is our sensitive data? Who has access to it? What regulations apply to it? Can we prove that we are, compliant with XYZ law or regulation? And then again, like I said, privacy has a lot to do with AI readiness. And basically the question that we have to answer as privacy professionals is: can we power AI using enterprise data confidently when personal data is involved? What are we doing to protect that data? And what are we doing to allow our businesses to use it safely?
Yeah, and I'm going to pull a learning lesson that we had in our kind of our core resilience practice. I want to say it was in 2022. We have a speaker at Veeam on, really fantastic. Uh, it was a public sector organization from the Netherlands who, during COVID, was dealing with a ransomware problem inside of a natural disaster. So it was a disaster within a disaster. It's an unfortunate combination, but I think, Cassandra, we can get into disasters within disasters. If we have a security breach, but then we have privacy information that shouldn't be in there and it
Of course.
shouldn't be accessible, disasters within disasters can happen in these types of
Absolutely.
situations. And that is just, we're not in the business of doing that in 2026 and beyond. And so really the play here is privacy ops. And this is an area that you and the teams, shout out Sarah if you're watching, and all of the different developer teams across the company. But tell us how the factual reality is this cannot be done in a manual manner
That's
anymore.
right.
We need a strategy, we need a platform, we need a solution, and what have our teams done about it?
Yeah, so if you're checking out this slide, what you would notice is that, okay, all of the traditional privacy ops categories are here, right? DSAR fulfillment, consent, compliance reporting, data mapping, assessments, data discovery, etc. Well, data discovery is actually not part of, traditional privacy ops, right? But your privacy notice, etc. So it's like, okay, I've got all of the platform allows you to do traditional privacy. But what we've done is we've sort of added rocket fuel, rocket boosters to our privacy ops modules. That's how I view all of our agentic development, all of our automation workflows. So automated assessment and data discovery was sort of like the original, oh, this is a differentiator. This is making privacy a lot cooler and a lot better. And what that basically means is that take all of your different privacy obligations and power them by being able to go into your data ecosystem at any organization and pull metadata that will be evidence of for your assessments, evidence of your data mapping. So it's your infrastructure and all the metadata about what data elements are being collected, who has access to your data, when was this file created so that you can compare it to your retention schedule. So a lot of automation with, asset and data discovery is really giving power back to privacy professionals to basically say, look, instead of going and having to interview data owners from here until kingdom come, which if you're a privacy professional and you're listening to the show, you know that is basically your job. Your job is to go and interview data owners, whether they're trying to procure a third-party tool or whether they're trying to build a product. Your job is to go and do a privacy impact assessment and ask them these sets of 80 questions or whatever. What if I said you could take some artifacts, you could take some SOC 2 reports, you could take some ISO certifications, you could take some product requirements documentation, fill it into a repository and have your assessment 80% filled out for you with pretty high confidence. And we're even going to give you what our confidence level is for those. That gives power and time back to privacy teams. That really is what they're always low on. They're always low on time and resources. And so every time that we try to build some automation or try to build an agent, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to give power and information and time back to already overextended privacy teams. So you'll see that if you go through our privacy ops capabilities, you're going to see a lot of automation. Assessment automation agents are coming out. Our compliance agents are coming out with cookie compliance, which we'll get into in a little bit. We're very keen on being thoughtful about AI development and agentic development because, hey, if we're saying here's a platform to govern AI, to govern agents, we certainly aren't going to throw agents at the wall and see what sticks. We are going to be very thoughtful, very thorough about how we govern our agents for you and how you can use them. But the basic premise is to take already very lean privacy ops teams and put rocket boosters on them and say, we're going to make your effectiveness and efficiency a lot higher in the day-to-day activities that you do to really reduce that redundancy, reduce that drudgery of work, and make your job fun again so that you could be actually assessing problems and mitigating them instead of just unearthing them for 80% of your time.
So much incredible information to unpack there, Cassandra. One thing that stuck out to me is I got a little, I don't know if it's a new term. You dropped DSR, and that stands for data subject rights. And I used to always get confused with a DSR request. So I used to think it was a data subject request, but no, it's a data subject rights request. And I think that is like a super important one, like a central instrument. Do you mind giving us a definition of a data subject right?
Sure. So, no matter where you are in the world, you have some form of rights over your data, over your personal data about you, right? And so if you're living in the United States or you're living in Europe, you have different rights. But in general, you have the right to go to any organization and say, hey, what data do you have about me? And why do you have that data about me? And, I would kind of like you to erase my data or delete my data. I would like to have the right to be forgotten, right? It applies to any data about you. So I don't want you to have any sort of limitations on what that would mean. Data doesn't just mean binary X's and O's, or ones and zeros, or, written structured data or unstructured data in a table, outside of a table, in a PDF. It's also, yes, like pictures of you or videos of you or your facial recognition, your facial geometry, if that has been taken, so you have rights over that data. Now, sometimes organizations can come back and say, well, you gave us permission to have your data and we got to keep it for this long because we also have legal obligations. But the fact of the matter is that you have the right to know. You have the right to understand what data organizations have about you. You have the right to ask for erasure. You might not always get it. You have the right to all of these things. So To accomplish that, our customers have to provide you an interface in order for you to be able to go and request those types of things from those organizations. And that's something that we do as a platform. We offer that interface and we offer that project management of those data subject rights requests. And it goes a lot deeper than that. We're actually attaching to your data. We're able to fetch what data, if I, for example, go to Veeam and I say, hey, Veeam, I want to know what data you have about me. And I fill out a subject rights request, then, we should be able to go and we should be able to go into our systems and find everywhere where Cassandra Maldini exists. And we should be able to fetch that data, bring it back into a nice packaged report, and then deliver it to the data subject after review. So that is sort of what a data subject rights request is.
And this is going to sound really familiar to the core historical Veeam resilience persona. Cassandra, I know you're an attorney by trade. I want to say it was 2017-18 that GDPR came out with the right to be forgotten. That was a condition that even made the resilience persona have to activate there. And those historical Veeam folk may remember the staged restore capability where we could provide a platform where data could be cleansed upon restore so that it doesn't actually become immediately non-compliant upon birth of a restore operation. So that's just one example, just connecting the lines here. But let's talk about one of the newest capabilities here, and we'll get into the consent agent in a bit. But cookie consent, Cassandra, I think every person watching this is a citizen of the internet, and there's really a great educational opportunity, and it's made worse if your organization, not worse, but it's amplified if your organization has a web property that's doing cookies and using them for business benefits. There's really a lot to it.
Absolutely. So, we sort of talked about privacy ops in general as sort of the operating system for privacy. And then we talked about one aspect of that with data subject rights. Cookie consent is another aspect, core, function of a privacy ops team. So, and I think it's probably the most visible, right? Because we all visit websites. Like you said, we're all citizens of the internet. As we're popping around different websites, we're seeing these banners come in our face, accept cookies, reject cookies. Cookies sounds really good. So, I understand why people would think maybe you should accept cookies. However, this is something that almost all of our organizations have to deal with. And again, something that we've all experienced as consumers. So, as we're greeted with these cookie banners and we're asked to accept, reject, manage your preferences, we have to kind of zoom back out and understand what a cookie is, right? So at its very simplest form, cookies are these small pieces of information that websites are storing in your at the browser level typically. Some are really essential, like truly the website cannot work unless these cookies and tracking technologies are present, right? However, others sort of help manage analytics. How's this website performing? Remembering your preferences. So, for example, if you set English as your language of of your browser or a website, that is an example of you managing your preferences. If you personalize content on a website, that's another example of a tracking technology that would have to be like, oh, this is Cassandra Maldini, and she likes it whenever things look like this on her browser, right? And then there's also this other type, which is advertising, right? And there are companies that want to have some form of tracking so that they could say, hey, Cassandra visited, this sporting goods website, and then she visited this, where she's going to go hiking, and she must be like really active and outdoorsy, and they start making sort of profiles about you to understand more about you so that they can offer you goods and services that they think that you might be interested in. And the reason why those cookie banners seem to be everywhere is because privacy laws really around the world are increasingly requiring these organizations to be transparent about how they're using these technologies, and in many cases obtaining the permissions, before they actually do obtain that information. So what makes this complicated is that there is not one global rule book. There's not sort of one standard way to do this. It is a little bit complex and nuanced depending on where you're visiting from, where your IP address is, where the organization lives, etc. So, this dependency on sort of location, what regulations apply, and even how those laws are defining consent really makes a difference between somebody like me visiting a website from California and something that you might see if you're visiting a website from Germany or Brazil, right? And I think that there's an important point to be made here, which is cookie consent really is not actually just the banner. The banner is sort of what I say is like, that's just your front door, right? Organizations have to discover and classify every single tracking technology that's on their website. Then they have to present the right experience to every single visitor. And they have to honor the choices then that those visitors are making. And then they have to propagate those choices downstream to all of those marketing analytics, advertising platforms, and systems that they're using behind the scenes. And then they have to maintain evidence that all of this is happening, just in case a regulator comes and knocks at their door, or they are served with a lawsuit, et cetera. They have to have these logs to show, oh, wait a second, like I actually did configure this correctly, and I'm trying my best to obey whatever laws or regulations are involved. And so that is what our platform is doing. It is this entire life cycle that I just talked about, from discovering the trackers, classifying them, deploying compliant banners, honoring user preferences, maintaining continuous evidence as all of these websites and domains, regulations, and user traffic are changing. And that's a really complex job. And you gave a shout out to Sarah Goddard. I'm going to give a shout out to Sarah Goddard too, because she's the one behind the scenes building this for us with our product teams and all of our dev and engineering teams. So big shout out to our team, because that is a huge, huge job. And that is what the consent agent is actually helping our customers do in a much simpler. You can imagine how complicated this can get. The agent is helping to try to simplify all of these processes for our customers.
Yeah, and I think this is probably one that I'm gravitating to a lot, stay compliant, because
That's right.
If you're a financial services organization, if you're a healthcare organization, and then put the matrix of the world in the mix, these web presences, everything's digitally transformed. My doctor's visit is managing a web portal and a mobile app. My banking, everybody banks with an online experience to it. And so the solve here, the save, is that Veeam consent agent. And fingers permitting, I'm going to show a little bit of it here in a second, but walk us through this 3-step compliance lifecycle.
Right. So once we sort of understood that life cycle and how complex it was, we asked ourselves sort of a different question. What instead of giving our customers all these dashboards and having them manage this, by themselves, which again is pretty complicated, what if we gave them an intelligent agent that could actually perform a lot of this work for them? So that is the philosophy behind the consent agent. So, for cookie compliance, that workflow really starts by continuously, after you've built a compliant banner, which our consent agent can do, it's this continuous assessment of your web properties. And again, a lot of these organizations that you're talking about, Rick, they've got hundreds of domains and subdomains. So this is no small feat. So our agent actually runs more than about 20 compliance tests across all your domains. And every finding is coming back, pass or fail, risk score, a confidence score, audit ready evidence. And that means that no one is going to have to manually inspect these hundreds of websites looking for compliance issues. And once these issues are identified, the agent doesn't stop there. It actually goes to that third step, which is remediation. Our agent recommends appropriate fixes. And then it gives you this confidence level. So if the confidence is high and the human approves it, we always keep a human in the loop, then the agent can go and actually automatically deploy that remediation on your banner, on your domain. So if the issue, however, requires some legal review, some legal judgment, then the agent isn't actually going to pretend to know how to answer. Instead, it's going to provide real clear recommendations, step-by-step guidance, and then it's going to maintain this complete audit trail of every action that the humans take. So it's going to allow you to project manage the remediation right there in the platform. And that's a really important design principle for us, Rick, is that AI should automate repetitive, redundant work, but human experts should always make policy decisions. So the two work hand in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm gonna be brave here. Okay. So I'm gonna go look inside the actual product here. And, directionally, friends, those of you who are familiar with Veeam, it is reasonable to expect, we've announced this at VeeamON, the resilience products will show up in here. I have gone into the cookie consent module and looking at some domains that I have under management and under assessment here. Now, these assessments, when they do what Cassandra just described, it takes a little bit of time. And so I've already run one, and Cassandra mentioned the consent agent, right? This is the new widget that can actually put this really the power of AI to solve these problems with purpose-built. She clearly knows what she's talking about, and Sarah and the team are rocking it out as well. We have
That's
this
right.
right here. And so I have something that ran earlier, similar, but actually even worse. So the example that we had was 85% confident. This is 95% confident that there's problems where only 4 of the 20 tests pass, right? So you can get some of this real-time information right here in this product. And what's really interesting is I launched a separate scan here this morning, and you can see like some of the different elements here. This isn't the agent, this is just a scan, but that consent agent, I had it generate me this report. This stuff, I'm telling you, friends, I've been at Veeam a long time. To put the resilience products in here, to look at all these other different dimensions, I'm really massively excited for it. So when I see this stuff in action, I don't want something, to your point, Cassandra, I don't want something that just tell me what the problems are. I love the
That's right.
remediation angle. Tell us a little bit more about, super clearly, this isn't going to work, okay? You can't do it
That's right.
manually. How much of
Well,
an operational benefit is this?
let me clarify something just about this slide.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, manual remediation, we're trying to reduce manual remediation. But
Fair.
actually what this slide is showing you is, look, the agent, as we have deployed it, can auto remediate all of these things that are on that left-hand side of your screen.
Yeah,
You just click approve and we're going to go in and we're going to do it for you.
yeah.
And then we were talking about those things that really do actually take some legal expertise. We want a human to be really in the loop to go in and make some judgment calls. So there are going to always be things. I mean, hey, as a lawyer, I don't want to be out of a job. Right. But this is what we're talking about whenever we're talking about agent builds. And this is something that's super important for me. It is not about replacing humans. It's about taking that really crappy work that no lawyer actually wants to do, no analyst should do. It really should be done as what I call policy as code, right? We know what your policies are with regards to cookies, and these are the amazing things that we can go in and with just a click of the button, you can solve these. We can solve these things on the left, and then the things on the right is where we're going to say, okay, now that we've taken this off your plate on the left, you can spend your time really focusing on these things that still do require manual remediation. But to your point, Rick, you're absolutely right. We cannot go at the speed of AI and the scale of AI without actually using the shiny tool ourselves. We need to use AI in AI governance to allow us to go at the speed of the business. And I think that that's what's really important here.
Yeah, and I apologize for the misfire because I was I'm running live. I'm driving this live. We are live. I'm tuned into
We're
LinkedIn
going
right
live.
here. And big shout out to Stefan G joining us from the stream. I got to stay focused here. And then a big favor to ask of Felicia, our producer. I want to kind of bring this home in a couple areas, just some extra points that really help you understand the Veeam of today. Number one, the Gartner Magic Quadrant for data protection and backup and data protection platforms has been launched. This is my favorite part. So many folks like to go into this part right here. We're in a great spot in the neighborhood that matters here. So really want you to check this out. Felicia should push that out here momentarily. Shout out Attila from Hungary, who's also on the stream. What's interesting here is that the Gartner report has indicated and explained why there's some serious benefits of what we're doing here with the DataAI command platform that directionally will make an absolute difference. And really, we talk about data and AI trust. You're going to see this really connect these different dimensions. So highly recommend you check that out. In the second report I want to highlight, this is really central to what's something that Cassandra mentioned earlier around the quality of the data and the fact that folks are going to be building AI solutions upon it. Omdia, great set of enterprise AI readiness, some controls and recovery for agents, speaks to the gaps that are in organizations and some of the different controls. A couple of stats here. Everyone calls it a priority. That's rather Captain Obvious, but this caught my eye. Only 6% of executives are really fully trusting of these AI agents, right? So, couple of different analyst reports that can help give you the lay of the land to help go through your AI projects confidently. So we're about at the end of the show here, Cassandra. I just want to say, thank you so much for your perspective here.
My
And shout
pleasure.
out, oh, Stefan's in the USA. He got back to me, but thank you so much. This was really fun. You've definitely earned a spot back on my show.
Awesome, Rick. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. This was awesome.
All right, big shout out to our producers, Felicia from Dallas, Jeffrey from the Barncade in Central Ohio, and CZVC. That'll make sense in 2 weeks from now, or scheming up with some special stuff. But on behalf of the Veeam team, thanks for watching, everybody. That concludes today's Tech Bites.